Hello, everyone, and welcome back to your favorite St. Louis sports podcast, The Lunatics. I'm your host, Tyler Edwards, along with my co-host, friend, and quote-unquote co-producer, John Love. This evening, I am currently drinking Angel's Envy bourbon. It's a personal favorite of mine. It's what I went to tonight. John, what do you got?
Water. High quality H2O, if I'm quoting Ricky Bobby here.
Was it blessed by an Eskimo priest? And that's not Ricky Bobby that you're quoting, by the way.
No, it's not. It's Bobby Boucher.
It's Bobby Boucher, yeah.
Bobby Link, yeah. But when we were at Disney World, we were bragging about the St. Louis water to someone in the airport and kind of crapping on the Orlando water. So I just want to throw that out there, that we are very blessed with water that has not been, sanctioned by an Eskimo priest, but it's close enough.
I mean, it's still good. It's just not quite the same caliber.
Right. Still good.
It's always cold if it's been blessed by an Eskimo priest.
Yes, that's true. But unfortunately, it's not the water we have. But I am overcoming a little bit of a sickness, so I figured I should probably avoid alcohol tonight. And I'm apologizing for my voice sounding weird because it sounds extra weird, more weird than normal. At least
you don't ever actually watch any of these afterwards yourself anyway, so you're fine.
I'm fine. Yeah. It's not my
problem. I
feel
like I'm the one who actually listens to at least chunks of these later, and then I'm like, oh, we sounded real terrible the other night. So I feel like I always sound terrible, so that's fine.
Exactly.
So it's been, for those listeners, I know we technically released an episode last week, but it's been 2 weeks since we've recorded, and a busy 2 weeks at that. There has been crazy things happening all over St. Louis sports world in general, as well as earlier this evening, the Lions managed to squander. I can't even say words.
We are so great. We're really on form tonight.
You know what? We're starting off top notch, but they did not pull out. They had a 17-point lead at halftime and then gave up 27 straight points.
The funniest part about it was the meme that I sent you that I found on Reddit from The Simpsons, and it was the saying, "This is how you beat the 49ers." And it was, one of the adults in The Simpsons, smacking Bart on the head. Mm-hmm. And Bart is Green Bay in this meme. And then, I saw that and I was like, I wonder if they're still winning. And then checked the score and no, they were not winning. And I was like, that's glorious. It made my whole day.
So here's kind of, I think the hot topic right now, and the thing that I really want to touch on is really the first thing on our outline as well, the Blues. The St. Louis Blues are so hot, just so hot. But so they lost 5-2 in Washington to the Capitals. We looked atrocious that game. We come back to St. Louis to play the Caps 2 days later, and then we blank them 3-0. Good sign. Looked like a completely different team. But again, for me, it's the same thing, right? The inconsistency. You win 1-3, you lose 1-3.
Right. Well, and we'd been losing several in a row at that point too. I think we lost the Flyers and the Bruins, I think, right before that.
Yeah, it was not looking great. It was looking like the new coach bump, as we called it, was well gone and behind us. But that 3-0 win is nonetheless something to highlight. Was the shutout there by Benner. And a lot of people are like, yeah, this is the Benner we need, and blah, 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 blah. He faced 18 shots.
Right.
I've said it since the beginning of the season. If you could keep him somewhere around 20 to 25 shots or less, Benner will win you games. He will
Absolutely.
Not. And that's what you need from a well-paid. And he's won us games and kept us in games when he's faced way more, right?
Right.
But on a night in and night out basis, we should be focused to keep him around 20 to 25 shots, where he's only being asked to make 1 or 2 ridiculous game-changing saves, and it's going to keep us in the same place. And the same with Joel Hofer. I mean, he's done great for us this year too, but again, any goalie in the league, if you put up against 30, 35, 40 shots in a game, I mean, it's too much.
So what I'm hearing is that if you allow your opponent to take less shots, they score less goals, and you win more games. That's
if you have a good
groundbreaking.
if you have a good goalie. Because there's goalies
okay.
out there, it doesn't matter how many shots you take, they're going into the net, right?
Fair.
I mean, what I'm saying is goalies, you should not rely on goalies to win you games night in and night out. And realistically, even during this stretch, but especially prior to it, one of the things that the Blues have really leaned on and needed to win games has been their goalkeeping, and that's not your goaltending is not something you want to be your bread and butter for how you win games if you want to make the playoffs or make a deep run.
I mean, no, but it's the way you say that, though, it implies that having, that the goalkeeper doesn't matter. And that's not accurate either, right? I mean, it is a strength of our team. It is something that good teams have, good goalkeeping.
No, I 100% agree. Good teams do have good goalkeeping. But even good goalkeepers, that while they might steal you a game or two, if you go into the playoff and expect your goalie to make 40 saves a night and win a series, you're never going to win that series.
That's fair.
Your good goalies are going to be able to stand on their head for a game or two, but they're not going to be able to stand on their head an entire series and get absolutely obliterated.
Right. And the other thing about goalies too is it can be a very streaky position, right? Too, where if you go cold, like you could have a rough few days, and in the playoffs you can't afford that either. So you've got a good point there too.
So after that 3-0 loss, we have then went on to rattle off 4 more victories in a row, all by the score of 4-3. The last 3 of which all being overtime wins, with a certain player that a lot of people have been talking a lot of crap on, with Braden Shin, our captain, getting all 3 overtime winners.
Sometimes life is good. He still has the worst plus minus on the team, but he did get the last 3 game winners. So I don't know if there's like a wins stat in hockey, like a WAR, like baseball has WAR, but Schenner just definitely helped hockey's version of that out for him.
Oh, for sure. And something to keep in mind, right, is, Schenner they've changed around a lot of the lines and who's playing with who. And I feel like we're seeing some better production out of several of our players. Again, our defense is still suspect at times, but we know that we have, one really solid defenseman in Colton Parayko, and we have a bunch of guys that are hit and miss. Nick Leddy's, played consistent, but not great. Kevin Falk has taken a big step back this year from where he was last year. I felt like he was by far our best defenseman last year, and I feel like he's, probably where he should be, but he's 4th best on the team, I feel like right now, on any given night, defenseman wise, maybe 3rd best. And so, but that step back hurts, right? Because if Parayko and Falk were both firing on all cylinders and playing like, number 1 guys, both your top 2 defensive lines look completely different from how dominant they are. So this is a fun statistic, and I don't know if you heard this. So 2 games ago, when we went to 4 games over 500 finally, which we'd failed to do all season, we'd gotten close, but not to 3 games over 500. It was the first time we were 4 games above 500 since April of 2022.
That's not that surprising to me. Having lived through last year, right? Where and last year I felt like we felt good at the beginning of 2022 to 2023 season, but yeah, that's not surprising. And honestly, when you started saying that, I was like, oh God, is that going to go back to like 2020? Like I thought it was going to go back way farther than that, honestly.
Well, we made the playoffs. We made the playoffs as a decent playoff team. We were not like worried about missing the playoffs in that 2021-2022 season.
Right.
And honestly, I still think had the Avalanche not taken out Benner, we have a really good shot of winning that series.
Yeah.
Getting back to good goalkeeping can help you is needed for good teams to play
matters,
well.
It turns out.
So, some things matter. but our opinions don't. But people apparently listen anyway.
All 15 of them listen.
Hey, you know what? We sometimes have 17 or 18 views, so
Occasionally.
that might be because I'm playing it over and again trying to find some real footage. But I mean, that's fine. Got to boost those numbers.
That's right. It's about getting the numbers high enough for monetization, of which we are very, very far away from.
Hey, we're only a few thousand followers away from monetization.
We're so close. We'll be there in like a month or two. Yeah. I do think the 4-2-3 streak is pretty awesome. I like that we're grinding out these wins. I feel like there was a lot of grit missing earlier in the season. And I think they're really kind of trying to, coming together as a team lately. So I am really excited to see that. We are in a playoff position now, which is nice. We have the second wild card spot after today's win, and we have a game in hand
over Nashville.
Yeah. So things are looking good. The
bet's looking better.
It's looking better for someone. For you, if you win this, what am I buying you? What beer am I buying you if you win this?
Oh man, I have not been drinking a lot of beer recently. Strictly not because I don't like beer, but because I've been trying to lose weight. So I've definitely been just doing tequila and bourbon on the rocks if I'm drinking.
I mean, it's not like bourbon is like so healthy.
Calorie count wise, it's way less than beer.
Some beers. There's calorie.
The beer that I drink, it is
fair.
Much lower in calories. And tequila's actually not bad for you really at all, calorie count wise. Like as far as putting on weight,
there's no bad effects from tequila. So,
hey, you know what, man? When I go to like work conferences, tequila on the rocks is my go-to. And I sip on that tequila and I enjoy my evenings. So. Never ended up drunk and doing the worm on the dance floor in Vegas because that would be inappropriate.
Embarrassing. Yeah.
So here's the thing. Beer wise, though, I really like the Brewligans, and I haven't had it recently. And by the time this is up, there should be plenty of Brewligans in stock, and we'll be getting into the thick of the city season. So
that's true.
It might be a really good choice to go for Brewligans, although. I'm also a sucker for some Guinness. I haven't had Guinness in a while. It's been sounding real good recently.
Speaking of
it's
low calorie
surprisingly
beer,
low in calories. Yeah. It's filling, but it is low in calories.
Exactly. That's why
prefer
I
to
recently
drink my loaf of bread.
That's right. I recently restocked my fridge with Guinness explicitly for the low calories. But it might be a moot point because technically speaking, you're still losing the bet.
So they're currently, their point pace is at 92 points. And for the listeners at home who have not been following along, John weaseled his way in and goes, how many points do you think the Blues should get this year? And I was like, they should 93 points, I think is a realistic number. So he put the over under at 92 and a half. And Tyler, being the idiot that I am, went ahead and said, yeah, let's do it. I'll take the over 93. And for most of the season, it has not looked great for me. But after this nice little streak we're on, we're at a 92-point win pace. And if we keep up even just playing it as how we have the last 15 or so games, it's looking real good for me. So
it's looking real good for you. I'm happily concerned that I might be buying you beer, but I'm not complaining.
We need to hook up with Jacob again because I'm curious of where he's at with all this stuff. About
we should
where he's Blues at with it, especially after this. Hey, if you guys don't listen to the Blues Fan Forum podcast, great podcast. Jacob's a good guy. We did a joint episode with him, but more importantly, I feel like we need to hook up with him during this All-Star break and talk about what we're thinking headed into the end of the season.
Yeah, we'll have to reach out to him and see. The other thing I was hoping to talk about for the Blues is I had heard a rumor, and I think you heard it too, that the Blues were
saw it again today. So this is not.
We're shopping Parayko to other teams. How do you feel about that? Facepalm?
Don't like it. So,
not a fan.
First of all, if you did not know, Parayko is of the active St. Louis sports players is the longest tenured player in St. Louis, any St. Louis franchise, continuously tenured.
Really?
So yeah, I think he's at 8 or 9 years now.
Yeah, that sounds about right. And yeah, there's no one left on the cards from that long ago. So yeah, Parayko it is.
Yeah, Lord knows it was Waino until the end of last season.
Yeah, right.
And Yachty before that.
Right.
But so here's my issue, right? Even if we're going to commit to a full retool rebuild, right? What's the one thing that we've been missing since we've been trying to rebuild after our Stanley Cup win?
Defense.
Number one defenseman.
Mm-hmm.
We had Petro, right? And Petro was the guy. Army said, you know what, Petro? We're good. We don't need you. Instead, we're going to sign 6 average defensemen to try to replace your single production and screw us over in the meantime, which I'm still pissed about Army about. I still feel like we should have paid Petro because it was pay him now or pay somebody else later, and we ended up paying multiple somebody else's later.
And it didn't work out.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, Petro has another Stanley Cup since then, and we don't. So you win some, you lose some. Here's the thing, though. Colton Parayko has shown not just to be a good shutdown defenseman, but he has shown his offensive prowess and ability this year more than he has in his NHL career. I mean, to the point where they put him on penalty or on power plays here for a little while. He's getting pucks to the net. He was always known for that just ridiculous power slap shot that he had early when he came up. But he's figured out, how to just get shots off quick with fast wristers, getting him to the net. And if you can get pucks to the net, it leads to goals. So offensively, he's been doing everything we needed to and been playing like a number one defenseman. Even if we decide to retool and rebuild, why would we not want to do that? Why would we want to do that, I guess, with Parayko? Right? Or without Parayko? Why would we want to move forward? Whether we're trying to compete, we definitely need him. And if we're trying to retool or rebuild, would you not want to keep him there until you knew for sure you had a replacement?
Well, okay. So the thing that it comes down to, and I'm glad you used those phrases because I think those are the buzzwords that if you're paying attention to the Blues that you're going to be hearing a lot this season, or that you have been hearing a lot and will continue to. And that's retool versus rebuild. Now, retool means, okay, we're 1 or 2 or 3 pieces away from being a really competitive team right now. Whereas rebuild is, strip it down to the bare minimum and start building back up, getting young pieces cheaply, maybe some that still need a little bit of development. And Army needs to decide what we are doing from that perspective on if we are retooling or if we're rebuilding. And I will say the team has looked good lately. I think we're far enough away now where I'm not as inclined to call it a new coach bump anymore. But we have been consistently winning more than we've been losing since Bannister took over. I mean, he's coached almost half the season so far.
Yeah, I just don't know, what the right call here. And I was reading an article on ESPN about the best bargain contract, or maybe it's The Athletic, the best bargain contracts in the NHL. And a player popped up that was on there, and it made me kind of think back to how he played when he was with the Blues. But Nico Mikkola was on that for the Florida Panthers, and how well he's playing and outplaying his contract so far. And I'm like, that guy was not playing up to his contract, right, with the Blues. And they had to have seen something with him that they thought they could fix. Obviously, they signed him and they took him. Not that Nico Mikkola was a bad player, but definitely he is a completely different player now. And so I think that's one of those pieces. The trade deadline is not till March 8th.
We've got time.
It's roughly like a month after the All-Star break. So you've got
Right.
a little bit of a gap there. All-Star break here coming up. Um, the Blues have to know at the All-Star break what they're doing moving forward. Because if they don't, we're going to get caught in this. We're not sure if we're retooling or rebuilding purgatory, and you'll always be either just barely sneaking in, luckily, or you're going to
Right.
be missing out or just missing out of the playoffs. So you're never good enough to win the draft lottery, and you're never bad enough. Excuse me, you're never bad enough to win the draft lottery. You're never good enough to win the cup, and you just okay, and you end up where the Cardinals have been for the last 5 to 10 years.
Right. Right. And there's a lot of teams that exist in that range. Period. Like in all of the major U.S. sports, like that's not uncommon. And I don't want to see either of our teams fall into that. Although the last couple of years, it's certainly felt that way for both the Blues and the Cardinals. In the 2020s, it has felt that way. Obviously, the Blues won the Cup in 2019, but in the 2020s, it has felt like we are reverting to mediocrity, and I'm not a fan.
Yeah, I think for the Blues, it was watching Petro go that signaled mediocrity for the Blues. And I say, upper middle class mediocrity, right? Good enough to get in, never good enough to actually get to the dance, to the final dance. So, and then for the Cardinals, it's similar. It's, oh, well, we're just trying to be good enough to make the playoffs. Well, good enough to make the playoffs and losing in the wild card round every year that's not.
One of the things I will say is I do, and this is actually a good segue, I think, into the Cardinals if you are done on the Blues. But the Cardinals have made, over the last few years, several moves that I've really liked, in the fact that they've restructured our minor league pitching depth to be very heavy on left-handers. So if you look at teams that consistently do well in the playoffs for MLB, they all have a heavy left-handed lineup, and also then a pretty heavy left-handed amount of pitchers. And the reason for that is because obviously lefties mash on righties. So if all the teams in the playoffs have left-handed hitters, you need left-handed pitchers to counter that. And I think that that Mo has been making strong moves, for the future to develop that way. But we're just kind of in this awkward point where it hasn't really come to fruition yet. So that's my 2 cents.
I think I get where you're saying, right? It's we need these lefties, but we haven't developed them.
Right.
I mean, the trade for Liberatore is a perfect example. The reason we traded for Matthew Liberatore is because we needed a good left-handed starting pitcher.
Yep.
We couldn't develop him, so we went out and signed Steven Matz. Steven Matz keeps getting hurt, so and then Liberatore still isn't developed, and so we're still stuck in this we have two mediocre left-handed starters, but we still don't have an actual left-handed starter. So then last season, our best weapon out of the bullpen early in the season is Thompson. And we're like, hey, Thompson, you know what? You're doing great. We need a left-handed starter because our left-handed starters and our starters in general last year are trash. So we sent our best and most consistent reliever down to the minor leagues, trying to lengthen him out. He came back and did okay.
Yeah.
But you've lost so much value with him because he was pitching in those high leverage situations and was pitching well.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And did you see, and we may have talked about this on a previous episode, but that Sonny Gray, he didn't mean it this way, but it basically came out that Mo has invested a little bit in pitching development and support for the pitching staff in ways that we weren't doing before, that most of the other major league teams had been. I don't really think we do
this.
Yeah. We don't do a great job of supporting and developing our pitchers. It's something that I feel the Cardinals have struggled with. I think we've developed really good field players pretty consistently over the last 20 years or so, but we have definitely struggled with pitching development.
I say we've struggled with pitching development in the last 10 to 13 years.
Since 2011, basically. Like that
Not
time
even,
frame?
it was right around there. So even through 2013, right?
Right.
I mean, like we saw guys we were drafting coming in, we were developing them well. They were coming in and making an impact. You think about that playoff run when we won the World Series in 2011. We still had guys like Lance Lynn coming out of the bullpen that were playing
Right.
great innings and important leverage. Shout out Lance Lynn. We're happy to have you back. And then
Well,
you've got other
go ahead.
players like in 2013, your NLCS MVP, Michael Wacha, who came out of nowhere, right?
Yep.
And we developed, he was a high draft pick, had good stuff. We got him to a place where he was ready to contribute and really helped us down the stretch make it to the World Series. And so we were developing and bringing guys up, but a few years after that, you started seeing the decline of our pitching development, and it just has not rebounded at all.
Right. And that's actually the exact time frame I was thinking of was that group of guys in the early 2010s was the last time I felt like we were bringing up good pitchers that, from within our system. So I'm glad that you had kind of the same thought process there for when that was happening. But I don't know. We've got to see.
And I'm not saying we haven't had a couple guys come up who have, looked good, but not the same way we used to.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. But then we went out in free agency this year and bought a lot of arms, but they're all in their mid 30s, and I, not feeling great about relying on those arms.
Hey, now I'm in my mid 30s.
Yeah, you ready to go out and throw 200 innings?
I could. They wouldn't be good innings though.
Well, see, the thing is for them to count, you still have to get outs.
Yeah, but they're not used to seeing 70-mile-an-hour fastballs, so I think it would catch them off guard.
It might. I mean, Zach Greinke's gotten some really good punch outs with 56-mile-per-hour pitches. So,
hey, look at Waino, man. Not last year, but the year before.
Yeah. Hey, if you lose the velocity, as long as you still have pitch tunneling and good placement, like you can be effective. But in addition to signing old pitchers, we've now signed an old infielder, Matt Carpenter, bringing him back.
I'll let you mention this bottom bullet point on him before I get into my thoughts, because I'm about to go on a huge rant about this that I've been preparing.
First off, I can't wait to hear this. But we are getting the band back together. We are excited about it. At least I am, for nostalgia, not for performance. But what I am really, what's interesting about this is because he was DFA'd from Atlanta, who got him, I think, from the Padres as part of another trade. It was kind of like a poison pill type of thing. Atlanta DFA'd him. We picked him up on waivers. So we're only paying his the league minimum salary. Atlanta's paying everything else. So it's not like we're spending a bunch of money to bring him in. All right. Go.
So first off, let me get into my nostalgia piece. So I love Matt Carpenter. Matt Carpenter was one of my favorite players in the early 2000s. I actually got to meet Matt Carpenter when he was still down in Springfield. I sent John a picture, and we'll post it on our social media. But I actually got to meet Matt Carpenter when he still played in Springfield. I mean, I love the guy. I love his approach. I love his grinded out workman mentality. Now let's get into why we signed him, and brace yourself. So the part of this is that makes me super frustrated is listening to Mo talk, which is exactly why I thought we signed him. Mo says the leadership we're going to get from Matt Carpenter, that's what's important. That's what we need. We need his leadership to help in the clubhouse, to help develop players, to help guys know what to do in the big moments. I'm paraphrasing, but that's what he got at.
Yeah.
The reason that this is a huge issue is that we're blatantly saying, hey, guess what? Our manager doesn't have the leadership and we don't have the leadership. We haven't developed the leadership in the clubhouse. We're taking a roster spot to sign a player that we know is not going to realistically contribute this year. If Carp has a rebound year like he had with the Yankees a couple years ago, don't get me wrong, I will be the first one on here screaming and yelling and being super pumped and excited. But the reason we signed him is because we have failed as an organization, as a Cardinals organization, to put leadership in the right places, to have people where they need to be, and to ensure that the leadership is already in the clubhouse. If we're signing Carpenter to be a leader in the clubhouse, we should have been signing him as an assistant coach, as a bench coach, as a you name it, right? Something that the Cardinals are severely lacking is major league experience. And I'm not talking like journeyman played here and there sporadically major league experience, which is what we currently have. I'm talking about played every day in the major leagues, knows what's going on, knows what they're doing, and can help with that. Daniel Descalso is a great pickup. Somebody who did do that, and that's why we picked him up. Losing Skip Schumacher hurt because Skip Schumacher was that guy for our club. So when you lose Albert Pujols, Yadier Molina, and Skip Schumacher as your leadership core, and all in the same season, and then the next season, all you realistically have, as far as you still have guys who've been around, but nobody who's actually mentoring or talking to these guys. And part of it to me is we didn't hand off the baton. Goldie and Arenado need to be the guys. They need to be speaking up. They need to be taking charge. Waino, whether he was or wasn't, I assume he was, but that's one voice. I mean, you've got 40 guys, right? You need to be speaking to these people, right? And if you're using a major league roster spot just to backfill your leadership, incredibly huge mistake from a roster construction standpoint, long term. I think, if you need a guy who needs to, provide leadership, I think Carp is going to be able to provide that and help the team. You are absolutely going to burn yourself in the long run by taking a roster spot for a player that realistically you should be using as a coach position. And I think it stems back to part of it is replacing Skip Schumacher when Matt Holliday wanted to come or was going to come and backed out, which again, he said was to focus on family and things like that, which I totally get. But I have to think some of that had to be after initial conversations with Ollie, and I feel like he wasn't sold on the guy. All right, I'll take a breath now.
Yeah, I was gonna say I've been sick the last few days, and I'm out of breath just listening to you talk. Like trying to breathe for you is making me hyperventilate a little bit. Yeah, I don't disagree with a lot of what you said. It's not unheard of for rosters to have a veteran guy in the clubhouse who is there mostly for leadership, but normally they still contribute a little bit on the field. And I don't know if Matt Carpenter is going to be able to provide high level production. Like that's part of why we brought Albert in. We didn't bring Albert Pujols in to just trot him out there for, the cameras. It was in large part because in the right situations against left-handed hitting, he was still mashing, right? Like we intended to use him there. And yes, we did get the advantage of his veteran leadership, but it was also to use him in those situations. So now I have
anecdote. We got way more than we expected, Albert, especially down the stretch.
We did. Yeah, we absolutely did. When apparently he realized he was doing something different with his leg kick than what he did before he got injured in 2012. And like that was the change. And I was like, Christ, man, that just like ruined your whole career. Like losing that one little thing. But it didn't ruin his career. He's first ballot Hall of Famer. But you know what I mean? The other part of this that I've seen comments on online that people are upset about is that it's saying that Goldie and Arenado are not good enough leaders. And I'm like, I don't agree with that assertion. Like the leadership part of it is sometimes like it's a lot. And if you're putting all of it on just those two guys for a clubhouse, like you said, of 40 guys, 26 in the majors, like that's a lot for them. And we also need them to be very productive players as well. And so being able to take a little bit off of their shoulders so that way they can focus on their own performances, like that's still important there. I will say I was disappointed at times last year in Arenado. I expected him in Yadi's absence to step up and be kind of the more vocal leader. Goldie has never been a vocal leader. Goldie's always been a show up, do his thing, work hard, lead by example. And I kind of expected Arenado to be that fiery guy that we know he can be. And I didn't feel like we saw that last year. So I do hope that we can see that again this year. But I don't know. I have mixed feelings about Matt coming back.
Again, I'm nostalgia-wise all for it. I just did a quick run through the roster. Guys that are 32 or will be 32. There's one guy that'll be 32 turn 32 during the season. This year, we have 10 of them on our roster.
The recipe for success. It's experience. Well seasoned.
Here's the again. But tell me why we needed why. So we had 9 prior to Carpenter. Well, the Kittredge trade happened before Carpenter, so we had 9 prior to Carpenter. So we needed a 10th. And again, I think it goes back to this, and Cardinals fans out here are probably going to put me on a crucifix for this. It goes back to this, the Cardinal way crap.
That's exactly what I was going to say. But I wasn't going to call it crap, but I think it is probably related to that. And, we're not in a clubhouse. We don't know what things are like, but if you feel like the guys in the clubhouse have kind of strayed away from the organizational values that the club has been built on, and has exuded, especially over the last 20 years, I can see the benefit in bringing a guy back who was here during those times, especially because you also have Lance Lynn coming back. And I do think Lance Lynn is going to be a big leader this year because, Lance Lynn is not a guy who lets things slide. He speaks his mind. So I do hope that those types of issues get resolved, but I'm not feeling strong about this Cardinals team.
So I have mixed feel again. I think if our pitchers can pitch just to their career ERAs, will be good.
Yeah, right. But they're all
it's all if, right? Because we said the same thing last year. I think the reason I say Cardinal way crap is that it's not that I don't believe that, hey, what your organization's preaching, cores, values, everything isn't important. It's that Mozeliak keeps going back and referencing the Cardinal way when I feel like we've lost our way. And we as an organization have not known where we're going. If you had said the Cardinal way in the early 2010s, yeah, I was right there with you. It's the last 3, 4, 5 years, I've got less faith in the quote unquote Cardinal way because I'm not seeing the results on the field. So it's hard to say, oh, well, we're bringing Carp in, and he said it in his press conference, we're bringing Carp in because he came up and knows the Cardinal way and can help us reset things. You're telling me that you've lost the Cardinal way. So, if he said he understands the values that we built this organization upon and admits that, hey, as an organization, we've strayed, but instead he says, oh, well, he's a leader who understands the Cardinal way, so he can help us because he already knows what we're doing. Well, what you've been doing hasn't been working. So I think it's, I think the reason I say crap and the reason it gets on to me is the way that Mozeliak handles handles the press conferences and how he communicates and refuses to take any kind of ownership. I mean, he's taken a little bit, but then he doesn't truly, I'm going to take 1 step forward, 2 steps back with taking ownership for situation with Mo. And, I think if he admitted yes, we need this because we as an organization lost our way and we're trying to reset, and had honestly just said that, it comes off different than, oh, he already knows the Cardinal way, so he'll fit right in.
Yeah. I think you and I are both kind of, Ollie out, Mo out, kind of guys at this point. Obviously, we're going to have them both this year, so we're going to have to see how this year goes. But they'd have to do really well to change my mind about that this year. And if you look at some of the projections out there, I don't think we're not the only ones that are not confident about this team. And that leads me back to a segment that we have not done in a while because we kind of started making it up as we go. And that's a 10-second yes or no. Okay. Are you ready for it?
I guess so.
Okay. 10-second yes or no. So Fangraphs has this team projected to go 85-77 this year and winning the NL Central. Now, do you think either or both of those things happen? Do you think the Cardinals get 85 wins? And I'm not trying to set you up like I did for the Blues. Like, this is just me asking.
Do I think, repeat the question.
Okay, so do you think the Cardinals get at least 85 wins, or do you think they win the Central?
I think they've got, I think they, I don't know. I have a hard time answering that question right now because so much depends on these pitchers that are past their prime staying healthy for the year. Again, I think if pitchers pitch to the way they would have for their careers, even over the last 3 years, say if you take the last 3 years and two of those years are bad for Michaelis anyway, but if you take those last 3 years and you say, hey, the pitchers will pitch their average over the last 3 years, whatever else, yeah, I'm going to take that. But if any of those pitchers start to fall off, it becomes a huge gamble on, is Gordon Graceffo ready? Is the next guy up going to be ready to actually take the ball and pitch competitive innings for us? And right now, I'm not sure. I see us somewhere in between 80 and 85 wins right now. And I'm not sure if that wins the NL Central or not. Again, it depends on if one of the other teams has some hot streaks or whatever else too, right? So like, if I were to look
an
at
85 win division winner, that means that the rest of the division has to be really bad. Like almost. I
think whoever wins the division is going to be 88 to 91 wins.
No, I'd agree with that. I don't think there's a 90-win team in the Central, but like I think whoever wins the Central is 88 wins, right? But like to say that a team that's gonna win it with 85 wins, that means that everyone else has to be really bad too.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting. I agree. It's definitely a problem. It's going to be a potential problem for the Cardinals. Is going to be, again, pitching, right? They say they addressed it. I'm going to use this as my one time to bring this up again. There's still a pitcher on the market that is not going to pitch this year that I think we should look at signing to a multi-year contract for Post, Lynn, and Gibson, and Brandon Woodruff.
Who's that? Tell us more.
How many times have I talked about him? But those of you who are new to the show, because hopefully we're bringing in new listeners, Brandon Woodruff is one of the 2 stud pitchers for the Brewers over the last few years, along with Corbin Burns. Woodruff had some injury issues, had surgery, and is going to be out for pretty much this whole season. And because of that, the Brewers just went ahead and let him go because it was the last year of his contract. So Cardinals could come in, sign him for multiple years because we have Lance Lynn and Kyle Gibson on 1-year deals with club options. And if Woodruff shows out and gets healthy and you feel like he's ready to pitch, you have another stud pitcher ready to roll out in the lineup in a year.
Yeah, and not only that, but I mean, but Snell is not signed yet. I don't think Monty is signed yet, right? Like, there's still pitching on the market, and the fact that none of the teams are budging kind of tells me, like, okay, that means that we can probably get some of these guys at a reasonable price. We just have to be willing to spend.
I mean, the pitcher I really want still is Monty, but I just want Monty back because I'm a Monty fan, and he played. I mean, he showed, he showed how well he does. So yeah, there's been other news in the Major League, and you've got it highlighted here. Matt Holliday was on the Hall of Fame ballot this year for his one and only year. So he did not get. So you have to have at least 5% of the votes to stay on for the future years, and he got 1%.
Yeah. I mean,
do you agree with
Matt Holliday? He was always a borderline guy. anyway. It's especially hard for him when he comes on a ballot at the same year as Adrian Beltre, right? Like those are two very different skill levels. I thought he would get more than 5%. I thought he would stay on the ballot. I was surprised at the number, but I wasn't surprised that he didn't get inducted this year. I was surprised that Mauer got inducted first ballot, not because I didn't think he was deserving, but because catchers normally are underrepresented and undervalued in these types of things. But I think it's a very good sign that Mauer got in for Yachty, at least.
So for Holiday, yes, I agree. My disappointment is not that he didn't get in, but that he's off the ballot after a year. That's what I struggled with. And again, doesn't mean he won't ever get in. They have
the Eras committee could induct him later. The Eras
committee could induct him later. And honestly, he probably would have had a better chance if he had an MVP on his resume, but he finished second to some guy named Albert Pujols one year. So
yeah, that's how it goes sometimes.
You win some, you lose some. Joe Mauer is an interesting case to kind of when you say good sign for Yachty, because him and Yachty are pretty much polar opposites at the catcher position. I know we talk a lot about Buster Posey being, the opposite of Yachty a little bit, and that both Buster, Posey, and Mauer, but Mauer more than Posey, brought more value with their bats than they did with their glove. And Yachty was the other way around. Polar opposite, right?
Right. So the reason why I think this is a good sign for Yachty is because, since it's such a numbers heavy vote, because the baseball writers really like being able to quantify everything, and catchers are normally underrepresented, I found it unlikely that they would vote for Yachty if they hadn't voted in Mauer first. So the fact that they've already voted in Mauer makes me think that it would be easier for Yachty to get in. On the reverse side of that is that they could try to compare Yachty to Mauer, but I think there's enough of them that are, when you look at like league-wide stats, Yachty has way more all-stars. He has way more defensive, he has way more gold gloves. He has platinum gloves. Mauer never got a platinum glove. They're just different. So I do think Yachty is deserving, of course, as you do, and as does every Cardinals fan that's out there. But just the politics of it, I think it helps Yachty's case if Mauer's already been inducted.
And Mauer was not a power hitter either. For those that you think he was, he didn't hit for power. He hit for average, and a high average at that. He led, and this was one of the questions that popped up when I was on the fight against Randy Carricker. But how many times did he lead the league in batting average? Did he win a batting title?
Is this the one you missed?
No, the one I missed was who has the in the 92-90, 91-92, or it was 92-93 season, which team set the NHL record with 17 consecutive wins. And I went with the Canadians, who won the Cup that year, but I was wrong. It was actually the Penguins who went on the tear. Who would have been my second pick? Was my second pick?
Yeah,
Carricker got that one.
Yeah. It's
then
Penguins
would have
been a good choice for sure.
I was also not very old at that time, so
you weren't watching a lot of NHL hockey when you were 2.
Yeah, no, I wasn't. So, but Mauer has 3. He led Major League Baseball twice and the AL 3 times in batting average. I mean, the guy was a monster at getting on base and getting hits. Was a doubles machine. Did he? I can't remember if he won an MVP or not.
I don't think he did. I'm pulling it up. Keep talking.
Yeah. So anyway, so but again, very much an offensively minded catcher. Not that he was terrible defensively, but he didn't change the game defensively the way Yachty did. And so it's interesting to compare. I also, think about, innings caught, right? When you think about catchers, that's something Yachty has on anybody at this point, right? There's not going to be another catcher that's going to catch as many innings as Yachty did. The guy was built different. There's a statistic and a thing running around the internet right now, which I find amusing, but Buster Posey and Joe Mauer combined had less innings at catcher than Yachty did in his career, because those two both flexed into first base a lot to try to save their knees.
Right. And Mauer did have one MVP season in 2009.
There you go.
Yeah.
I was like, I thought he did. And that's another thing that Yachty doesn't have on his resume. I think he only hit 149 home runs or something.
Mauer?
But yeah. But he had
I have it up in front of me. Yeah.
Okay. His career batting average is over 300. But, I don't know. I need to look and see how Yachty compares long term, because the reason I've looked at Mauer is because he just made it into the Hall of Fame. Yachty's batting average for Yachty career was 277. Yachty actually has more career home runs than Mauer. There's a
counting stat. Mm-hmm. Mauer's batting average was 306. His on base percentage 384. He actually has a decent OPS plus 124, which means that compared
he smashed
to other
a lot
catchers,
of doubles.
Right. But it means he was 24% better in that regard to the league average. He's third all-time catchers with doubles, sixth all-time with hits, which means Yachty's higher than that, right? Yachty has more hits than 2,100, right? Yachty has more hits than that.
I'm pulling up all-time catcher stats.
But no, Mauer definitely deserves it, but he's just different. They're just different players. Mauer is, as far as offensive production goes, Mauer is like the guy for catchers, in a way that especially among modern catchers does not exist. Posey would be the other close comparator, and so it's well deserved. We'll have to see. We've got 4 more years before Yachty's on the ballot. Posey should be on before then, right? Posey just retired.
Yeah, he retired first. So this is where Yachty's going to get hurt, is when they look at the career WAR wins above replacement numbers.
But WAR is not accurate for catchers. That's the point.
Correct. That's what I'm getting at. Is that's what's going to hurt though too, right? Is when you look at the top 7 catchers: Johnny Bench, Gary Carter, Ivan Rodriguez, Carlton Fisk, Mike Piazza, Yogi Berra, and Joe Mauer. That's a tough top 7, right? But all of the top 11 are in the Hall of Fame. And there is a couple of people in the Hall of Fame below Yachty. So it's not saying that he wouldn't make it in, right? There's several.
Right.
And I think because of that, that's something to keep in mind. As
Yachty
to where
does
that
have
is.
About 40 more hits than Mauer.
Correct. I was talking about him being a doubles machine, though. Joe Mauer has 428 doubles in his career. Yachty, by comparison, has 408, but games played, right?
Right.
Yachty is over 400, roughly 350 games, 360 games more than essentially
right.
two.
Well, and I'm not.
But its durability should take into that, right? Like if you were able to play catcher at a Hall of Fame level for as long as you did without ever really dropping off, and when Yachty came up, he did not hit. Let's be honest. I mean, the guy struggled. Yeah. The reason he came up was because of his defense and his game calling, his ability to stop the run game of other teams. That's why Yachty came up. That's why Yachty earned his spot in the majors, and the hitting came later. I mean, I remember the 2006 run when he hit that home run against the Mets. That was as shocking to many as it was when Ozzie hit the home run left-handed, right? It's not something you expected out of those guys.
Well, and 2006 was actually, from a batting perspective, basically Yachty's worst year. The only year that was worse from a batting average perspective was actually 2022, and they were essentially the same. So, but with that, okay, I'm not a fan of the durability argument for most positions, except for positions that are historically hard to be durable in, such as catcher, right? Like people do not survive in catcher. That's why Maurer switched. That's why Posey switched. Yachty would not have been in the majors if he had switched. Like
I have three positions where I feel like durability matters in the majors. Catcher, center
what else?
field, center field, and shortstop.
Okay,
Shortstop
I would,
is enough.
I would
Shortstop
add
is
pitcher to that.
I would agree with pitching. I'm thinking more like field positions.
Fair,
but because those three are so much harder on the body, and so much more demanding. It's why it was, when you have a guy who can play his whole career at shortstop and still be effective batting and defensively, that you're able to manage that.
Yeah.
Center field's another one, right? I mean, Harrison Bader played when the reason he played was because of his speed and athleticism. So you get a lot of fast, quick guys that can play out there every day, but can they hit?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why when you get somebody who can do both long term, that's much more impressive for those positions.
Right. And Yachty was not a bad hitter. Like he had several years where he was really good. On his career, he was slightly worse than average. But his career was 19 years. And from the batting or from the catcher position, like if you have essentially a league average hitter at catcher, that's okay, especially when you add in the defensive skills that he brought. So I don't know. I do think he's a Hall of Fame catcher, and I can't wait to see him get inducted.
The thing that I think, and I know you know this, but the baseball writers, like the people who have the votes, that I hope they realize is look at how our pitching staff performed with Yachty and without Yachty.
Yeah.
That's all you need to know.
In addition to that, look at how many less steals were attempted against the Cardinals during his career than any other team. Like the next closest team, the next closest team is 50% more than us. Like steals attempted. Mm-hmm. Like and we are just like there's a big group of teams that are like between like 2,000 and 2,300, and then everyone else way above that. And then we're down at like 1,400 steals attempted in the 20-year span he played. Like that's a big difference.
Yeah. I mean, again, he changed the game from the defensive side that I think was, absolutely unreal. And I think that's something worth noting and keeping in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. My 10-second yes or no.
Okay.
For you. Does Yachty get into the playoffs on the first two ballots?
Into the playoffs on the first two ballots?
Not the playoffs, into the Hall of Fame. I read something on the thing that said playoffs when I was looking at our outline.
On the outline. I knew what you meant. On the first two ballots?
Does Yachty make it into the Hall of Fame on one of the first two ballots he's on?
I think it depends on Posey. If Posey is still on the ballot, I don't see Yachty getting in. But I do also think that the writers will want to induct. I could see them wanting to induct Yachty and Albert together because they're such good friends. So I could see that like Albert like pulling Yachty through, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and because they retired together, they'll be on the ballot the same year.
They'll be on the ballot on the same year.
That would be so amazing.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Now I have a new hope here in the next few years of something I want to see sports-wise.
Yeah. We'll have to check.
All right.
I have nothing else that I need or want to say about the Cardinals right now. Do you have anything else?
You had a comment about jersey limit stuff.
Oh, yeah,
and I'm curious.
Baseball's the no fun league. Yeah.
So I know you say, hey, MLB doesn't want us to have fun was your title here. And I don't disagree. The MLB is the no fun league. I mean, honestly, it's the reason why people... So Iowa, this is a fun one. So we're talking about streaming rights, trying to get people access to Major League Baseball games. Iowa has 5 or 6 teams they have blackouts for that they can't see games for. So they can't stream games to the MLB app for the Cardinals, the Royals, the White Sox, the Cubs, the Twins. Who am I missing? I feel like I might be.
The Brewers.
There might be another. And the Brewers. So 6 teams that Iowa gets blackouts for. I mean, just absolutely unreal. And then they wonder, I don't know why we can't get more people to watch our games.
Right. Well, that goes back to the thing that we were talking about, a couple of weeks ago about how supposedly only 15% of households in the St. Louis region can watch Cardinals baseball.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big deal for a fan base that's as rabid as ours. And that if we're only hitting 15%, teams like the Twins are, probably hitting much less.
So the other thing is we have amazing radio broadcasters.
We do. That's true.
Which
I
also
prefer
means
listening to it on the radio.
I do. So I actually will pause TV for a split second to get the radio at the same speed and watch the game live, but with the radio broadcast playing, because I prefer our radio broadcasters. But that's just me.
Yeah.
So, but
that's
I think
that hurts.
That hurts the St. Louis pieces as well, though, right? Is that okay? Well, I don't need to watch the game because it's expensive to have to pay to get that channel. And instead, I can just for free hop on the radio and listen to amazing play-by-play announcers.
Yeah, because they actually have to describe the game. They aren't just going to talk about other random crap the whole time.
Yeah,
yeah. I don't have access to watching Cardinals games most years, and so I listen to it a lot on the radio, and I do prefer listening to it most of the time. But then I miss watching it, and then I, steal someone's login info so that way I can do that.
So, I mean, you would never do that because don't come checking
that would be illegal.
IP addresses. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know you mentioned the red spring training jerseys are gone, but I still thought that and again, this goes back to our jersey episode, but I thought the red jersey talk was in relation to the City Connect jerseys, because they only allow you to have 4 jerseys plus a City Connect. And we have the 2 Saturdays. So we've got the baby blues and we have the cream. Although I wish the baby blues were just our always away jerseys, but that's just me. And then we have the gray and the whites. I still am in favor of getting rid of the grays, just doing baby blues for away and then having red that you can mix in for home or away whenever you want.
Yeah. Yeah.
But City Connect hopefully should be on the horizon, and it sounds like that will be a red jersey. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. But did you see, okay, so we're finally getting a City Connect jersey. The Nationals are already taking theirs out, and they have one of the better ones with the cherry blossoms.
The roses, cherry blossoms. Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't see why they couldn't have just done all the teams in a single year for this, but
or in a 2-year span, but instead they spread it over 3 or 4, and it's just been
at least, yeah. It's stupid.
It's you would think you would want everyone to have City Connect jerseys because it would be cool to do a week of City Connect jerseys.
Yeah. But again, we're smarter than they are. So
they just it's the marketing from the MLB is just piss poor. But yeah, whatever. Hey, and better news, we're just over 2 weeks out from Valentine's Day. And do you know what's great about Valentine's Day?
Pitchers and catchers report.
That's exactly right. And pitchers and catching reporting doesn't hurt my wallet.
It depends on if you're going down to watch spring training, I guess.
That's fair. But yeah, so we're just over 2 weeks out from pitchers and catchers reporting, and the unofficial start of spring training. I think the technical official start is once everyone reports, but for me, it's the start of spring training. It's the start of baseball season, and I'm intrigued to see if all of our old pitchers can make it through our wonderful spring training sessions without getting injured.
I'm not going to bet on guys staying healthy, but I really want to, but I don't feel good about doing that.
Here's my last MLB 10-second yes or no question. do both Monty and Blake Snell sign before spring training?
Before pitchers and catchers report spring training, or before like games start spring training?
Before pitchers and catchers report.
Do both of them sign? Yeah, I think so. I think they both like get to like that last week and take a deal, so that way they can like organize their lives before the season starts, because the season is so busy. So yeah, I think they both do. Now I could see that being like February 10th they sign, but yeah.
I think one, but not both will. And then I think at least one of them will hold out into spring training and wait for a team that's desperate after somebody gets hurt to actually shell out the money they want. And I think that's how it'll play out. I don't think both of them will sign.
I could see that happening. I support that theory. I subscribe.
Good. You should subscribe, because I'm a genius.
Yes. To our
comparison,
channel.
In comparison
subscribe to our
some,
channel.
Yeah.
Like our page. Follow us on social media.
We have some of the best hot takes here. Like the fact that I look really goofy wearing a beanie in this podcast, but I felt like I would give it a go for once.
Yeah, it doesn't work for you. I think it actually does work for you. I'm not against it. Now, that being said, we're on Riverside because it uploads while we record. Like, I can't really see you. You're very fuzzy. So
you're blurry too.
Yeah. But I think it's working. The badge comes through great. Like
the badge does look. Yeah. I think the badge looks spot on. I think it's a solid hat for that.
Also, I really like your shirt. I like that Cardinals top.
Right. Oh yeah, I actually have two of them. I think I still have two of them. Or did I give one of these to Devin, my brother? I don't remember. I've given him a couple of giveaways over the years. But at one, I know Lindsay and I each got one of these, and it was too big on her. Because they always give their giveaways in XLs, which is perfect because that's what I wear.
Not always. They have one this year that is a mystery size giveaway jersey.
What?
So it could be any size, and they also aren't saying which player it is. So I think it could be like any player, any size. It's very bizarre.
I mean, it's kind of cool, but also terrible.
Yeah.
Because
but if you're small, it's.
Yeah, but what if you're small and you get a 2XL? Everyone's just going to be swapping in the stands.
Right, which is the point, though, right? People can do that now.
Yeah, I think that's not a terrible thing, right? Like where you could trade with somebody in the stands, like, hey, if it's all the same player, it'll be easier to trade. But if you get a bunch of like different players and sizes, somebody's going to be like, oh, I got Taylor Motter. Will you trade? And nobody's going to trade with that dude.
Why not? League MVP, Taylor Motter.
Well, what's going to happen is they're going to hand out that jersey, and the jersey's going to somehow get sent to Memphis before that player can even wear the fan can even wear it.
Right. Right. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. Oh God. Okay. We got to wrap this one up.
We do need to wrap this up. So there's been a lot. We've talked about a lot already. And again, it's been 2 weeks. We have a lot more, so we're probably going to have to split this up into a two-parter episode to finish this bad boy out. For those of you who have stuck with us this long and are waiting for that St. Louis City SC content, it is on the way. But please remember to subscribe, like, and follow our channel. And more than anything, remember that here at the Lunatics, we all hate Stan Kroenke. Good night.